Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening.
So, Your Excellency, what assessment can you give regarding the recovery of national territory?
In terms of recovery, today we can say that the initiative is ours. That is the most important aspect. For several years, since the beginning of this war, we have been passive. And it was the enemy who set the pace of the operations. So the change, this shift, the fact that we have regained the initiative in operations is very important. And in order to regain the initiative in operations, it took a lot of effort in terms of recruitment, equipment, but above all, training. Because one thing is also very important. Today, no one knows our army. If I may say so internationally, no one has a handle on our army. We have broken free from the mold of being trained by others. Having others dictate the program to us, the tactics to us. Today, everything is homegrown. So it is Burkinabés who designed the program based on feedback from the field, who trained the men. That is why we are able to achieve remarkable feats. And as I speak to you now, our units have taken back many localities, especially by advancing north of Djibouti. These localities, which have been lost for maybe almost 10 years, such as Baraboulé. Well, from there all the way to Petekoli, our units have retaken them after a series of battles, but now they are there, they are established. In the east as well, we have made progress moving toward the Beninese border in particular. The key towns, such as Nadiago and others, have been retaken and are under control. And so we are advancing from victory to victory.
Mr. President, the army is stronger with many resources and better training, yet we still see that killings continue and the number of internally displaced persons is increasing. What explains this situation?
Actually, the number of IDPs is rather decreasing. The figures are quite clear on that. We are in the process of resettling people, as I mentioned, and there are many localities that have been retaken. A few years ago, there were nearly 2 million IDPs. We now have well under 1 million. And by May or June, there will be very few IDPs left. Because these areas, indeed, when you look at, I've just mentioned Baraboulé, Petekoli, the areas of Tulfe, Pobe, Mengao, Namsijia, and everyone who knows northern Burkina knows, all of these have been retaken between November and today. So you can imagine all these people who need to resettle and everything, so the number of IDPs will inevitably decrease. So the killings often, as we've said, when the enemy starts losing momentum, they tend to commit acts of devastation. So what can they do? They look for civilian populations, shoot at them quickly, and then slip away. And very often they even have the cowardice to film what they're doing, these acts against unarmed people and all that. And there you have it, that's kind of it. They want to stir up panic among the population. It's a war. They use guerrilla tactics and we conduct counter-guerrilla operations. But the most important thing, as I said, is that we've adapted and we're evolving. Because it's not just equipment that makes a war. You can have all the necessary technological equipment, but it's the human resources that matter, first and foremost. Human resources must, of course, be trained militarily, and you can see that many African countries spend their time getting trained by Western countries, and so on. So our philosophy is as follows. Are those people who come to train us sent by God, maybe angels sent to teach them tactics? But why can't black people also tell themselves that they too can develop tactics? But look, in all African states, Western countries have to come and train them. We have put an end to that. We train ourselves in the art of war according to tactics, based on our own experiences, and that forges the mindset of our human resources. And it is from there that you can create combativeness, resilience, resistance, and so on. That is very important. So yes, equipment matters, but it is also essential to value human resources. And it is all of this combined today that gives us this success.
Your Excellency, you have elevated the Brigade of Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland to the rank of an army. What can this bring to the fight against terrorism?
So we elevated it to an army because that is what it deserved. We are reorganizing ourselves. If you notice, by elevating it to an army, the regulations have also evolved a bit as well. There were many areas that were, if I may say, red zones in 2022. At the end of 2022, we created many VDPs and so on. Today, after 3 or 4 years, many of those areas have become completely green zones. For 2 or 3 years now, there have been areas where not a single gunshot has been heard. we have managed to create this security cordon around them. So it was necessary to reorganize the VDPs so that those who are in these green zones, if I may say, can remobilize to go further towards the borders of the region, the borders of the country. And so this creates a group of national VDPs and regional VDPs and leaves very few communal VDPs to continue maintaining the stable situation. So this change leads to a reorganization. Now they are organized into operational groups at the regional level. So it forms a military rank. That's why we have established it as an army and also given it its autonomy. Complete autonomy, certainly in operation, but above all in maneuver, because they have specific missions entrusted to them within the overall mission of the different armies. That's why we established a rank of army.
If Nadej allows it, Mr. the President, we are going to talk about training men, which is very important. You also spoke about erections, for example, of VDPs in the armed forces. Last December in Bamako, during your visit, you spoke of a black winter, of a black albino. Can we know if this winter has already passed, if this albino has passed without our knowledge, or what exactly is it about?
The black albino. It concerns Burkina, it will come. That I can say is good news that will come for the good of our homeland. That's what I see. And that it's coming. But as for the black winter, I think the wind has started to blow. The most perceptive will understand. This winter, we cannot avoid it if we continue to behave like this in Africa. Those who can quickly come together so that we can protect ourselves, kill the wolf. To use the pot and protect ourselves, cut dead wood to make a fire, or build hills to stop the wind, those who can understand this will understand. But winter is already here. The wind has started to blow. And I repeat, if we continue with this behavior, our heads of state, nothing can stop it.
So, Your Excellency, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of progress has been made on the ground in terms of reclaiming territory. But when will terrorism end in Burkina?
I can say that at the pace we are moving right now since November, I can assure you that at this rate, we are not too far off. Because the most important thing for us was to completely change our approach, to avoid doing what we had been used to doing for the past 8 or 10 years. Because those one-off operations, those same types of bases and everything, we developed something else, another tool. And when we tested it, it proved to be effective. This allows us to go into areas that used to be considered sanctuaries. For example, I was talking about the area up in Djibouti. You can see that this zone was like their territory. No one could venture there or anything. But today our units have broken through and settled in, and you can imagine. There are areas where, when they arrived, they actually found training camps, well built, even better built, and they had obstacle courses that were better constructed than those in our own training centers. Imagine they settled in, they brought in all the iron, cement, and everything needed to build the training bases. That really surprised us. It means they felt like they were on their own territory. But we broke through and now we're there. These territories are lost because they had been under their control for more than 10 years. No one had competent men there. In fact, the army had never even settled there before. And so we are continuing all the way to the limits of our borders. And that's what I said, whether it's in the north or the east, all over the place. We are starting over again. Once they no longer have any room to maneuver, any safe havens, it becomes difficult. But now there is an important phase that must come in a few months to completely close all the gaps and prevent infiltrations. Because often that's the issue. We can settle in, but they can find ways to infiltrate, either by planting IEDs or sneaking in as small pairs, coming to kill behind the lines, creating these emotional incidents and so on. But we are going to close all the gaps. We will take the necessary measures for that, but it will come to an end.
Your Excellencies, it has been decided to grant exceptional promotions to soldiers, gendarmes, and police officers under certain conditions. Won't this lead to resentment within the ranks?
No resentment. There is no decision in this world that can achieve unanimity. One evening, if you lead an organization, no matter how small, understand that it's rare to have a unanimous decision. So, of course, some people may feel frustrated or something like that. Second thing, human beings are what they are. Not everyone ever looks in the same direction, because we don't all have the same ability to understand things, the same ability to analyze and so on. That's just part of it. But one thing is certain, we are at war. If there are people who stand out because of their ability to go beyond their mission, it goes without saying that they should be rewarded. That didn't exist in the army before. We changed the statutes and everything, and we introduced it. And so we asked the various unit commanders who are out in the field with their men. There are men who perform acts of bravery, exceptional acts that go beyond their mission, and to support this with reports. Then the hierarchy has a commission that meets, reviews, and decides who those individuals are. For example, let's take a soldier who, during a battle, his job is not to lead a group or anything like that, because it's the sergeant who might have a combat group to lead, and so on. But you will find soldiers who, due to circumstances, found themselves taking back control of a group, engaging in combat and getting their unit out of a very complicated situation. That kind of soldier needs to be rewarded because he has the tactical ability to be a sergeant. So that's what unit commanders are supposed to identify. Submit the name, the command will read the report, analyze everything. Naturally, they are given the rank of sergeant to motivate them, because there are also other people who might want to do more, but who are also waiting to see the motivation behind it. It actually motivates them. It encourages those who hesitate, who don't want to give their all, to push themselves further. That's what we're asking for. And in war, that's very, very, very important. When a soldier, when a fighter pushes himself beyond his limits, it changes the course of the war. You see, when there's pressure, it only takes one person to decide to maintain a certain level of fire or to carry out a particular maneuver. And that can completely turn the enemy's maneuver around. And that's very important. So I actually think that instead of causing frustration, it encourages and motivates.
Since we're talking about national defense, Mr. President, not long ago, an army from a neighboring country made an incursion into Burkinabe territory to plant its flag, but the Burkinabe army reacted very quickly to restore the national flag. What is your analysis of that situation?
Oh, no, not at all. The Burkinabe army didn't even need to go and plant the flag. As soon as they did it, the local people took down the flag and put the Burkinabe flag back up. So even before the units arrived on the ground, the units went there to gather the people to preach, to the people not to give in to provocation. We observe them, and as I said, these are behaviors that fall within the framework of the Black Winter. There are people who always behave like Negroes. I wouldn't even say just Negroes, but drawing room Negroes, real Negroes. When their master tells them, do this, they can only do that. It's like a curse. They can't go beyond that. Look at some of them. They have given their entire country to those people. They are sitting there, they no longer have anything under their control today. But when they are pushed to go to war, they are ready. And they provoke. I've always told people, we are already at war. So we're not afraid of war. But if someone pushes us to the limit, for our homeland there's nothing else to do, we will go to war. And when it starts, no one knows how it will end. But an army that is not at war, if it can avoid going to war, that's better. But if you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. That's what I can say about this situation. We are watching. You've been warned.
Excellencies, we have now reached the end of this first section dedicated to defense and security. If you allow, we will now move on to the political and societal part of this interview. We'll start with you, Mr. Sanoro, to begin this section.
Mr. President, it's been a year since the Progressive Patriotic Revolution began. The revolution,
Progressive.
popular, is underway, my apologies. So 1 year later, what assessment can we draw from it? Are you satisfied with it, or are there still things that need to be corrected?
If you noticed, actually, since September 30th, it's been a revolution. But we waited some time to proclaim it on April 1st. And when we proclaimed it, we didn't release anything. No specific text, no manifesto, nothing about ideology. We were still observing regarding a manifesto that will be made available so that people can see a bit of the ideology behind the main theme. But already it was just to observe. As I said, the Burkinabe people are intrinsically revolutionary. As soon as we proclaimed it, there were many initiatives. Many people, whether they are intellectuals or not, because when we say intellectual, it doesn't necessarily mean those who went to school. That's right, it's not just those who speak French. Intellectuals exist in all social classes. Whether you go to the big market, to Rocco, or just about anywhere, you will find intellectuals, because an intellectual is someone intelligent. First and foremost, it's the person who is able to understand what we want to do. They took many initiatives to explain the behavior that was needed during the revolution, to explain what needed to be done during the revolution. And I observed all over people leading discussions, educated people, people trained through youth initiatives. That is very important, and that's what I wanted to see. And from now on, starting with this manifesto. And you can see that we are also in the process of putting things in place. Little by little, we had created the Institute of Black Peoples, but it hadn't gained momentum yet. And all of them will take part in the training of the Burkinabe revolutionary elite, the revolutionary elite that we truly want to develop. What we want to reach are the youngest, and already I tip my hat to the teachers and everyone ever since we proclaimed it. Look at how, in many schools, a lot has changed in terms of mentality. Teachers have taken initiatives, started to train people in the revolutionary spirit, in patriotism, and in everything that goes along with the revolution. I really appreciated that. The teachers took the initiative from within the schools, even before we told people to gradually transform the schools towards production. They started to recreate school gardens, allowing children to produce. In fact, they are bringing children back to the fundamentals of being Burkinabe. That is what I wanted to see. Is that revolutionary spirit, that intrinsic spirit still there? And now is the time when we need it most. So truly, we are satisfied, and it's up to us to do the rest of the work to train people. Because since this is a progressive revolution, the context has changed. It's different. A bit like the democratic revolution, the context has changed a lot, the world has evolved, and the progressive revolution must adapt to the current world. And this transformation is underway, so it's about keeping up with the times.
Excellencies, the Charter of the Revolution was recently adopted by the People's Legislative Assembly. So this charter gives you the possibility to run in almost all elections. Some see this as a kind of open road to a lifelong hold on power. What is your response to that?
First of all, I don't even know why people brought up the issue of elections. No, even the old charter, that was already included in it. It's not in the latest vote that the issue of elections was added. No, that's old. People brought this up with a certain mindset. No, we're not even talking about elections. First of all, we have challenges and we need to meet those challenges. We are sticking to our guiding principle. We're not going to bend at all. People need to forget about the issue of democracy. And that's a task. We have to tell the truth. Democracy is not for us. The kind of democracy those people want us to see, we're not interested in it. We don't even want it. Normally, if someone comes to talk to an African about democracy, if he comes to you like that talking about democracy, you should run away. Democracy kills. That's democracy. That's what they want. Look at Libya. It's an example right next to us. They lived in peace, didn't they? They lived in peace. Water was free. There were so many things that were free. When people got married, they already received social benefits and everything. But today, some Libyans walk around with jerry cans looking for water all over the place. Look at the misery there is. How many hundreds of thousands of children have died? That's democracy. Everywhere they want to install democracy in the world, it's in blood. May God spare us from this democracy. We have our own model. We're not even looking, it seems, for someone else's. We came to completely change the way things work, but above all to change mindsets so that people open their eyes, see the world, and so that we never fall into that trap again. People are here, democracy is slavery. There is no democracy in this world. They pretend there is. They do as they please, and to establish it, they kill. Democracy that kills, we do not want democracy. May God spare us from that kind of democracy. We are focused on our conquest, on our rebuilding, and on the revolution. It is the only path to development.
Your Excellencies, the customary and traditional Seferi has been restored. This is a testament to your vision for peace and social cohesion. What is expected from this social entity?
Yes, I have often said it. In fact, the Seferi Coutumier. This is another opportunity for me to thank them, to congratulate them for this way of life, because it is not easy. I often say, even for us, who are young, we were born into a system. And to change the mentality of someone who was born into a system is very difficult. The customary chiffre, the politicians managed to get them on board. And as I said, we have to tell the truth. Politics in Africa, at least what we've experienced in Burkina, a real politician is someone who embodies all the vices. A liar, a flatterer, someone who never knows, who speaks well, a smooth talker, who shifts the problems. That's what politics is. And if you involve traditional chieftaincy in that, what value will it have? But today we have decided to completely separate them from the political mindset, to bring them back to their role. Because a traditional chief, in terms of justice, you saw the Faso Bukaure law that we had adopted. Traditional chieftaincy is at the center of this law. In our society, not everything goes before modern judges. We have endogenous mechanisms, for example, to resolve our social problems. Whether it's minor theft or even murder, these issues are resolved within our societies. We want to restore the traditional chieftaincy to that role. Once you manage to create a space for justice within your community, you foster social cohesion, you foster mutual aid, solidarity, you therefore create love among your people, and that's what is being asked. So there are many things expected of them. It is that they are the ones who pass on our indigenous values to the youth and show our young people how Burkinabés of the past used to live. Up to today, thank God, we have managed to preserve in almost the entire community an ancient structure of how our societies function. And so it is up to the traditional chief to restore, to revive this structure, to implement it, and to help modernity by making the connection. So it's a very complex role that we are entrusting, but I am confident, given the mindset that has developed around it already from the discussions about this law, that they will be able to succeed in their mission.
So you are entrusting a complex role to the traditional chieftaincy, and at the same time there is also a law that has been passed regarding religious freedoms as such. And I believe that this law is causing quite a bit of friction within. And often there are misunderstandings surrounding it.
Well, a law that wasn't even debated in the assembly, and it's already causing friction. Have people actually read the law when there is one? Are they talking about the law itself, or just about the idea of a law? First of all, have they understood the law? The assembly will soon summon the religious federations to discuss the law. And so, if the federations are the representatives, if they are the leaders of different religions, well, that hasn't happened yet. If it hasn't even been debated yet, then a lot of people don't even know what's in the law. So, as I said, there are always people who are easily manipulated, weak-minded, who don't look too deeply into things, who are quite ignorant. You should know that the proposals don't necessarily come from the government itself, because there were consultations beforehand with many communities. It's a law that has involved more than a year of consultation with the community. So there are a number of reforms within it, but above all, it's about organization. I think it's a law that protects religious people more. In the sense that, you see, imagine, anyone can get up today and proclaim themselves a leader. They preach however they want, whatever they want. He can develop an ideology all by himself and is under no one's control. This law allows for organization. When you look at the Catholics, there is an umbrella organization. For traditionalists, there are umbrella organizations. For Muslims, there are umbrella organizations as well. And it is this umbrella organization that is supposed to organize life within the community. Someone, for example, cannot just rise up and appoint themselves, give themselves titles and start preaching whatever they want. If, for example, you want to be an imam or a religious leader who is supposed to preach or something like that, the law states that your umbrella organization is the one that must issue you a document that certifies you have the capacity to carry out what you intend to do. But this gives authority to religious leaders instead of letting disorder take hold. Someone gets up, builds their mosque, and does whatever they want. They build their temple or church over there and do whatever they want. So that's what we've tried to regulate to some extent. Basically, it's about giving authority to umbrella organizations, allowing each to organize within their own tradition. How should religion be practiced?
Your Excellencies, the activities of political parties were suspended and subsequently we saw their dissolution. So what message is behind these decisions?
What message? What has politics really accomplished in Burkina? Not much. Okay, message. What has politics managed to do in Burkina? Not much. It has divided us, that's a fact. Even within families, two brothers who belong to different parties will develop a fierce hatred for each other. You can't even imagine. And that's dangerous. In terms of development, you know that politics is like a business in Africa. That is to say, if I am the president of a party, I recruit you because you are smooth talkers, skilled deceivers. We flatter people, they follow us. We have business people on the left and right who help finance us, and then you go and bribe people. Once you've been thoroughly corrupted, if we win the elections, what can we do? Steal to get a return on investment. And those business people who financed you, you have no choice. You are obliged to give them all the government contracts. You can't make them pay customs duties properly. You can't make them pay taxes properly. Because they need a return on their investment. That's it. That's the reality. Even us, when we arrived, there were business people who approached us too, to finance or something. We are not politicians. If you want to give money, that's what led us to create a donation reception committee, if you remember. Afterwards, now the FSP. Because we were looking for money, but at the same time we said, well, since you have too much and you have a bad habit of giving while taking, and we put the treasury into an account. Now, if afterwards you come back and say, oh, well, we're supporting you, but I need my trucks at customs, they said this here, you need to help us get them out. That's usually what happens. They even explain the method to you because they say you're young or that you don't know how things work. That doesn't work with me. You will pay all the customs fees, you will pay all your taxes properly. If you want to blackmail someone because you supported them or whatever, let it be at the treasury. That helps the fighters. So this way of doing politics and everything, we've put an end to it. For that, we need a new political ideology. There needs to be training before we talk about politics in our own way. So that's why we suspended it. And afterwards, we dissolved it. But even they, the very ones who were involved in politics, agree. The RPP, it's not other people, it's the same individuals, but I think people now understand that they were manipulated, that they were on the wrong path. And now we are in the process of rebuilding something new. So in a way, it's not different people who left, it's the same individuals. But I think there was a turning point that allows us to start again on a new foundation. So the imperialist parties have been dissolved, but the people are here, being rebuilt, ready to get things moving. Burkina Faso.
Your Excellencies, the former head of state, ex-Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandow, Damiba was extradited from Togo for acts undermining state security and attempts at destabilization. What is the next step for this case?
Well, this is not the first attempt. Since we've been here, there have been attempts. This time, I think there was overwhelming evidence that had to be presented because, well, there were several attempts on his part, but we didn't try to extradite him or anything like that. Often, we would just tell the Togolese authorities, well, here's what he's doing, you should advise him. Because when he left, we never tried to do that. To start a witch hunt, as people like to say. You know, we never opened a corruption case or anything against him, because that's a principle for me. A former head of state, if he was a head of state, I'm not going to hassle someone over that, because that's a responsibility that was entrusted to him. He led millions of people, even if it was just for a month, he did it. So, out of respect for that spirit, whether it's President Roche, Damibal, or anyone else, I have never hassled anyone. Not that they're blameless. There are many things, but I decided not to hassle anyone. He should have just settled quietly in Togo. Unfortunately, he got caught up in a spiral where he absolutely had to destroy us at any cost. We tried to contain those people, but when you look at the last attempt, there were some very serious things where he was telling those who were supposed to take action, and that there would be a lot of deaths, and not just to kill as many as possible. Because to achieve their goal, they have to kill and not even care about it. Because they have ties with even worse people who will kill many others around to keep the units busy so they can't come to help us or support us. So something like that, something so planned, where so many innocent lives are taken needlessly, well, we have sent all the evidence to the authorities in Volés. It's not over, and I think he has been heard. The father, the judge, it's real. So that's why we extracted him right away. For now, he's here, we're digging into it, and it's one of those cases. Because there are a lot of things surrounding this. What we discovered is that it involves many countries, countries you wouldn't expect, countries that were supposedly friends. It involves a lot of people, a lot of prominent figures around the world. We realized that there was actually a huge operation behind it. In any case, a judge has already seen it. It's serious. It's very serious. And for us, it gave us a lot of information, a lot of lessons.
To quickly talk about the fight against corruption, which is in full swing right now in Burkina Faso and is yielding results. But some people feel that it's only the small fish who are being caught at best, and that the big fish manage to slip through the net.
Are you talking about the courageous cameras?
Exactly.
No, the courageous cameras are only one part of it. But wait, when the Tenyan case is declared as a Korak camera, we're talking about billions. You followed that live, didn't you? But that's not the only case. There are many other cases being handled, but it's just that some of them get media coverage. So there are big fish, in quotation marks, who get caught, but either the trial isn't public, or there are also those who have stolen but make what's called a settlement. That is to say, they pay back with penalties. The finance people who calculate this, it's because this method exists as well. If you admit to the accounts you took, then a settlement can be decided. You pay with the required penalties. And then, if there is a sentence to be served, you will also have to do that. So there are a lot of trials taking place, and the justice system is very busy, currently. But that's only what you see, because small acts of corruption also lead to bigger acts of corruption. Because small acts of corruption frustrate the public. Imagine someone who has a sick relative in the hospital. He goes out to urgently get some medicine, and then, for example, he gets stopped. We set up a process with the Labour Brigade so that people are no longer stopped. They can take their vehicle. You can keep them there, right? There is a card that is given to you and you can go. But if now an officer refuses to do this, someone who has a child, or in any case, someone at the hospital who is dying and he is rushing to get a prescription, we have put a process in place so that this person can quickly get his medicine and go back. But if you resort to corruption, you keep the person there. Contrary to what is said, you demand that he pays. For you, for your own pocket, that's the only concern. So that's the harm it can cause to the people. That's why we fight against this too. And that's what we have shown publicly so that people will stop. It's the same thing in the land services with plots and so on. People, you can come with all your misery, beg them, but they don't care. Yet the majority, those we call public servants, the civil service everywhere, you are there to serve the people. And if you take actions that frustrate the people, that cause harm among the people, that's also an issue. But here we need to show it in front of everyone so that others don't make the same mistake, if I can put it that way. That's why we film and show it. We have a lot of cases like this. This is only a part that we've shown, but we have many cases. But also the big fish, as you say, there are many cases. There are many cases being handled by the justice system. People are paying back. A lot of things are happening. But I can say that it has decreased a lot. We can't say that we'll eradicate it 100%. But the fight is relentless, and it's producing results.
We are going to transition into the third part of this interview, which is dedicated to the economy and development. And we'll start with you, Mr. Yahoo.
Your Excellencies, Burkina Faso reached record levels in mobilizing its own resources in 2025 with more than 2,300 billion despite the security situation. What are the levers supporting this mobilization record?
All right, thank you. The first thing that needs to be said about this is human resources. Congratulations go to our finance officers. They are the ones who did the remarkable work. Of course, we brought in reforms, changed mindsets, but it's because they embrace these mindsets that they are able to do the work as well. Otherwise, you can implement many reforms, have beautiful texts. It's true that you need to take measures for implementation and everything, amen? If the human resources have not grasped the fundamentals, they will always look for ways and means to get around them, and you won't get any revenue. So, as I said, they are the ones who should be congratulated first because they listened, they understood what we said, and they are applying the texts we are adopting. That's what brings in all this revenue. So congratulations. And I think we are continuing the reforms so that we can generate as much revenue as possible. That's what allows us to equip our forces and train them to build our country then. The staff of the Ministry of Finance have understood this. They are truly doing an outstanding job, and we will continue to encourage them so that they keep surpassing themselves, even in the same way as the fight against fraud. And all of this, you can see that they are really taking action, and we congratulate them for that. If we don't do this, we can't protect our industries, we can't protect our economy, and everything that goes with it. So if they had let themselves fall back into old practices, we wouldn't have been able to reach this level.
Mr. President, you have launched a gigantic project, the construction of the Ouagabougou Highway. It seems to be a project that you care about deeply.
I care about it a lot, and as I said, it's not the only road we're going to build. But the Ouagabougou Highway, if you take the Boubou Road, look, for the past 2 years now, just look at the number of tragedies we've had on that road. The road is very narrow. There are too many fatal accidents. Every day there are fatal accidents on that stretch of road. We need a road. We found a project that already existed, but it's just 2 lanes each way. And when I took over, I tried to see which companies had submitted proposals. First of all, they were foreign companies. The construction cost for about 300 kilometers, 2 lanes each way, was over 1,000 billion, 1,032 billion for the cheapest option. Well, I said 2 lanes each way is already outdated. With 2 lanes each way, if a truck breaks down, it just stops there, and that's it. Everything is blocked. You are the number of cars, the traffic flow on the R1, so it's outdated. So I asked for it to be 4 lanes each way. As I said, we often have this complex, this misfortune. Black people don't believe in themselves. Even when I said 4 lanes each way, there were ministry officials who smiled. It's impossible. I said, all right. We put the project on hold. And so I pushed the mayor to pay for as much equipment as possible, down to every detail. Today they have everything. All the machines needed to build the red road section, all the machines needed for the asphalt, even up to the granite quarry crusher. So they are completely self-sufficient. We are able to build our own highway. After that, there are a lot of highways. I want all the regional capitals on the island to be connected by highways. All the exits from Burkina should be highways. Roads are essential. For the economy and for our forces, the highway network in Burkina will be the densest in Africa, according to our projections. And it keeps coming. We still have nearly a dozen brigades that are yet to arrive.
Roads are essential for development, and mines are just as important. You must have an identity certificate. And we know that Burkina Faso has made great progress by being among the top 4 African countries. Gold producers, which is very important. And today you have built up your gold reserves. So now, Mr. President, what does the construction of this gold reserve mean for the future?
Gold is a safe haven, as we like to say. With currencies that are unstable and everything, everyone is looking for gold. To build up a reserve, because you never know. You know, we went through a brief period in 2023 when they tried to block us on everything. When we tried to pay for drones, our transactions wouldn't go through. We looked for alternative ways, because just like with our equipment, we stepped outside the official channel of sending things to ECOWAS to get authorization. When we say ECOWAS, it's actually the French who are there, who give the authorization to acquire certain weapons or not. We didn't want to go through that channel. So, our transactions were also blocked with various arguments. Arguments that don't hold up. So here we are, the war is happening and we want drones, we want weapons, but we can't get them. At one point it was about hydrocarbons. Sarneville's transactions aren't going through the system, so these are indirect sanctions meant to suffocate us. And at that time, diplomats came to tell us that we had better change things because we wouldn't even be able to pay salaries by March. It's been 10 months. We wouldn't be able to because we have no control over the economy. They're incapable of handling things. I said, there's no problem. Wait. So one day I had all gold production from all the mines blocked. I gathered everything and told the partner to come and collect the gold and send us our drones. That's what we did. Our drones came, they took their gold and they left. We need money, we need someone. So gold is important. People need gold and we need something in this world. Anyway, it's not a way of saying how people are going to handle things, but it does take courage, that's true. But that's what we had to do for a certain period, and people understood, well, they found a way to get by, they eased up a bit. And those same people even came to buy gold from us. I mean the BCE. So gold is very important, and I think everyone should try to keep a reserve of gold as much as possible. We didn't control our sector, we saw the data, but we created all the mechanisms so that today we more or less control the production sector. Currently, we are acquiring shares in many existing industrial units. We have reviewed the mining contract, so to speak, and everything else. In any case, we have a good relationship with those who are there, who are doing the mining, and Burkina will benefit from its gold. Because that's the problem everywhere in Africa. You can't understand how you have such a quantity of gold, and yet they say you are the poorest, you are the last ones. But why is it that there are countries here in Africa that have oil? If you go to the Gulf countries, they have oil. They are more developed than African countries. But we are cursed. We need to ask ourselves some questions. The real ones have changed. But if the leaders don't want to change and the people also accept their miserable conditions, well, what can we really do? We don't want to see our people in misery. We may not have oil, that's true, but we have gold. The little that gold or other resources can provide, we will use it wisely so that our people can know happiness. That's our main focus. There's no reason why people who have gold in this world, they develop and yet we do not. Moreover, it doesn't lead to development. So we've made considerable progress in mastering our gold in recent years, and that's satisfying. And we're going to keep going like this until we regain full control over our gold.